Namaste to everyone. A very grand welcome to this weekend's Mahabharat. Yes, now we entered into the weekend 10 of our Mahabharat series, and in that, as you all know, that we are dealing Indian history series, and this is Indian history class number 9. So we have completed around 8 classes of Indian history. If you are new to this series, please go through the previous lectures before coming to this lecture, because it will give you a complete picture of what we are going to discuss in this class. Sir, if you see in our previous classes, the last 3 classes, we have been discussing about the period that was between 3000 BC and 1900 BC. That means from 3000 to 2700 BC, that was the earlier Harappan period or earlier Harappan culture. We discussed that, and in the next lecture of that, in second part of Indus Valley Civilization, we have discussed the actual mature Harappan culture period that was between 2600 BC to around 1900 BC. So this was the Indus Valley Civilization part 2 lecture, and in the Indus Valley Civilization part 3 lecture, that means the previous lecture in the 8th class of Indian history series, in the last class, I mean to say, that we have discussed the period, the Mohenjo-daro city, the flourishing of the Mohenjo-daro city in specific, and every city in general, because every city was similar to Mohenjo-daro. We have discussed the specific features of Mohenjo-daro, and at the end of the last lecture, we have discussed about the decline of Indus Valley Civilization from 1900 BCE to 1500 BCE. That means around approximately 400 years. During that last phase, 1900 BCE to 1500 BCE, this glorious Indus Valley Civilization, which was called as the first urbanization in India, in Indian prehistory, where a large cities like Mohenjo-daro, like Harappa, like Kalibangan, Dholavira, Lothal, these are very, very mighty cities, sir. Mighty cities, earliest cities of our Indian prehistory. So this glorious culture was suddenly started disappearing. Yes or no? So by in the end of our lecture, last lecture, we have discussed different theories which explains about the reasons for the decline of this glorious culture, Indus Valley Civilization, culture. So in the latter phase, that is 1900 BCE to 1500 BCE, completely the cities were abandoned by the people. We don't know why. They were abandoned. We have discussed it. And the flourishing of the cities completely disappeared, vanished, and rural settlements started coming up, emerging up. We have discussed it, right? During this period, 1900 BCE to 1500 BCE. So as historians have given lots many theories, we have discussed around 2 to 3 theories. One of them was, historians said maybe the river Indus and other rivers got flooded. Got flooded the entire area. Every city was flooded and people abandoned them. So maybe floods was one of the reason for the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization. Indian historians especially believe in that. And another theory was that maybe the rivers which actually laid the foundation of Indus Valley Civilization, they might got dried up. So that was the second theory which was put forth by the historians, some section of the Indian historians. So drying up of the rivers, because in one of the earliest texts of Vedas, that is the Rig Veda, we found mentioning of a river called Saraswati. But right now, if we see in our Indian geography, physical geography, we could not find any river like Saraswati. So by these clues, some historians came to the conclusion that there might be some rivers actually like Saraswati, which were feeding these cities, but suddenly they might got dried up, and that led to the decline of the civilization in as its consequence. This was the second popular theory put forward by the Indian historians. But the most controversial theory I have explained at the last of the lecture, we stopped there. The most controversial theory, which was, flagged by the Western academicians, Western historians especially, that was Aryan's invasion theory. Yes or no? So we have stopped there. In the last lecture, we discussed about Aryan's invasion theory, and who were these Aryans? Why did they? Where did they come from? Especially these specific features of Aryans. Who are these Aryans actually? Why did they come to Indus Valley people region? And why did they destroy the Indus Valley civilization cities, Harappan cities? Why did they destroy? We don't know. But the Western historians, flagged this theory of Aryans invasion. They said the reason for the decline of Indus Valley civilization was not flooding, was not drying up of the rivers, but the Aryans invasion. So they invaded the Indus Valley area, civilization flourished area, and they destroyed the forts, cities, and they started settling there. Who migrated from some other place of the world. This is the theory which put forward by the Western historians. Anyway, so out of all these theories, we don't know the actual fact, but to believe, Indian scientific community believes that flooding was the main reason for natural calamities were the main reasons for the decline of the civilizations, not the Aryans invasion. I will tell you the reasons why Indian community denies that Aryans invasion theory. I will tell you in the next coming lectures. But to now, as we are in the earlier phase of the history itself, so please believe that there are three theories, most popular theories, which explains the decline of the civilization. Out of all, Indian community believes the natural calamity as a reason for decline of culture, and Western scientific community believes that Aryans invasion was actually the reason for Indus Valley civilization declination. So till this concept we have discussed in the last class, that is in our Indian history class number 8. So now we entered into the today's lecture. Sir, by 1500 BCE, if you see, completely rural settlements, prevailed. From 1900 BC, as we have discussed, cities got declined, people abandoned cities, they went to the eastern side of the India. As I have said, the story got tilted towards eastern side of the India from northwestern side. That means after the immigration of the Aryans, the so-called Aryans, the habitating area got a little eastward to the Indus Valley civilization occupied area. See, Indus Valley civilization got flourished in the areas of the present day Sindh province of Pakistan, Baluchistan province of Pakistan, Punjab of India, Rajasthan of India, and Gujarat area of the India. So this was the region which was became the adobe of Indus Valley people. But after that, if you see why we are specifically cutting our story at 1500 BCE, from 1500 we are saying that there was a new culture. 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE, this is the period that we are going to discuss today. That means after post-Harappan period, that is 1900 BCE to 1500 BCE, after complete declination of the cities, after the rural settlements started growing up, from 1500 BCE, our historians, very interestingly, they found completely altogether different culture. A different culture, sir. We have studied Indus Valley people were using, bronze metal. Indus Valley people were using different crafts, different weights. They have a specific standard weights. We discussed it. They have a specific script, which although it was not deciphered till now, they have a specific script. They have specific animal motifs. We could see that one horned bull regularly we have seen on the Harappan seals. So these are the specific cultural objects we were getting through excavations till 1500 BC. But after 1500 BC, this culture was suddenly changed. So the historians, got into this debate that after post-Harappan period, there was a complete change in the society. There were some people who have come from outside, the so-called Aryans. They brought along with them a new culture also. Not only people, but their culture, their language, their belief system, everything were migrated into Indian subcontinent. If we believe that Aryans invasion theory as true, that means when an outsider coming to the Indian subcontinent, that means they will also carry with them different culture. If they are strong here, that means which culture will prevail, which culture will dominate? Their culture. As they have started living here, as they have started settling here, that culture will become, assembled, assimilated into our culture, our Indian, the previous culture, and it evolves into a new culture. So that's what happening from 1500 BC. So let's start our lecture. This period from 1500 BC, after the post-Harappan period, to 1000 BC, 1500 to 1000, that is 500 years period, was considered today as early Vedic period. Early Vedic period. So let us see why it is called as early Vedic period. In which domains it was completely different from the Indus Valley civilization, Indus Valley society. Why it was called as Vedic, early Vedic? That means there is latter Vedic period also. So in which domain it will be different from latter Vedic period, the next coming period? Let's discuss everything in detail in this lecture. Sir, please listen. This lecture is very important because in this period, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, there are many seeds, the social seeds which were sown into the society, and then now today we have seen the consequences of them. Those seeds, those social seeds, I call them as. For example, to say today we are plaguing ourselves as a country with gender discrimination as major problem. Women were completely discriminated. Women were not giving their due role in the society. So a gender imbalance was there, social imbalance. So the main problem, the root cause for all these societal problems we are seeing today were actually started in history. So especially to say in this period, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, I'll tell you what are they. And over the period, they have grown and now they became, once they were needs, sir, they were actually the need, some social rules. But now today, they became problem. They became actual blockers of the societal development. Let us discuss them. Very interesting topic, sir. Please listen. Very important. See, the first we have stopped that Aryans have come into the country. Yes or no? So Western scientific community historians say that Aryans actually invaded this Indian subcontinent and they destroyed their earlier Harappan cities. Why did they destroy? There was a theory which says that actually Aryans, they believed in their god called as Lord Indra. I have said in the last class, Lord Indra. So Lord Indra was actually a god of warrior, a god of war. He was also called as, the Lord Indra also called as Puramdhari. Puram. See, what is this Puram? Puram means city or fort. Specifically to say fort. Puramdhari means a lord who destroys the forts. So because Aryans were actually believing in Lord Indra, Lord Puramdhar, when they came in encounter with the early Harappan period, Harappan people, Harappan cities, they destroyed every city. And in that confront between Harappan civilization people and the Aryans, it was believed that Aryans won over these people, and they started, their dominance, their settlements in the region of the present North India, a little eastward to the Indus Valley sites. So now there was a debate that actually who were these Aryans? Very important question, sir. So if you have to believe in that theory of Aryans invasion, we have to know who were these Aryans then. If they are not Indus Valley people, if they are outsiders, where did they come from? Very important question. So scientific community was in a very huge huge academic research about that. Where did Aryans actually come from? To India, to Indian subcontinent. So all these debates have come up in the British Indian period, sir. British Indian, that means after 1900s, this history writing, when this history writing of India started, from nationalists have started history writing in their perspective, and in counter to that, the British academicians and the British scholars started writing their version of scientific history writing of India. So when they were writing these histories, different histories in nationalist view and in modern Britishers view, this debate has come up that if Aryans were not Indians, if those Aryans who came and destroyed the Indus Valley cities, if they were not Indians, then who were they? Where did they come from? So this question was actually taken by a scholar, a British scholar, actually who was a Germany-born philologist. Who was a philologist? Sir, philologist is a person who studies systematically the historical development and the structure of language. That means they will take a particular language. For example, let's say Sanskrit, let's say English, let's say French. They will take one language and they will study everything about that language. That means when did the language come up for the first time? How did the grammar for the language got accumulated over the period, and how it got changed over the period? So everything about language they will study in academic research. They were called as philologists. So there was a British brought up but German born philologist. His name was Max Muller. So please listen, this name was very important because this scholar Max Muller, he was actually the pioneer. He was the pioneer of scientific way, the Western way of studying Indian history, and also religious studies of Indian history. So he was first laid the foundation for scientific way of seeing the Indian history rather than only religious, only orthodox or only nationalist way of the Indian history. Max Muller. So this name is very, very important. So this Max Muller has taken up this cause that where did Aryans come from? So he took up this issue and he started researching during 1920, 30, etc. And a little before that also, Max Muller was on that project. Where did Aryans come from? So he has given a theory afterwards. After a huge research, he has given a theory that was called as Max Muller's theory. Sir, Max Muller theory is the most popularly accepted theory which explains about the origin of the place of origin of these Aryans. Place of origin, where did they come from? So Max Muller, what did he say about them Aryans? Let's see. Max Muller theory, let's see. What did he say? Who are Aryans? Where did they come from? Why did they come to Indian subcontinent? Why did they destroy Harappan people? And why did they settle in India, Indian landmass? Why? Why they colonized Indian landmass? Let's see. Sir, Max Muller said, actually these Aryans were a tribe of Central Asia. After a long research, Max Muller concluded that these Aryans were actually a tribe from Central Asia. What is Central Asia? The present day Central Asia, if you see, It was a region comprising 5 countries, the present day 5 countries. What were they? Kazakhstan area, Kyrgyzstan area, Tajikistan area, Turkmenistan area, and Uzbekistan area. So all the stans, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. So this was the area Central Asia, we call it as. So Max Muller said actually these Aryans who came to Indian subcontinent at around 1500 BC and destroyed every Harappan city and they settled here, they were actually belonging to a Central Asia. They are a tribe from Central Asia, he said. But what was the evidence? We should not believe blindly, right? So what was the evidence he showed to scientific community? Sir, if you see till 1500 BCE in our Indian prehistory, we could not listen, we could not hear some terms, some words like some names like Indra, like Varun, like Mitra, like Nasatya. So these are some words which we were actually able to hear and see from 1500 BCE in our India. But before that, we could not listen, we could not find these words, these names anywhere. The names like Indra, Varun, Mitra, etc. The Lord names, especially God names. They were not present in Indus Valley period. They were not present even till 1500 BC. We could not find these names. We could not heard them in our Indian prehistory. But after 1500 period, if you see, we were very frequently listening them, frequently hearing them. In every text we found, in every text afterwards from 1500 BC, we could find these words: Lord Indra, Lord Varun, Lord Mitra, Lord Nasatya, etc. That means these people, if we believe that Aryans have come from somewhere, actually they were the people who introduced these terms in our India. Yes or no? By logic. So Max Muller said how he came to the conclusion that they were from Central Asia. Max Muller, as I have said, he was a philologist. That means he studied the languages and their histories. That means words. Language means words. So when he studied the Central Asian languages, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan languages, he very accidentally and very interestingly found these names, these words like Indra, like Mitra, like Varun, like Nasatya. These are the 4 important words. Sir, please remember Indra, Varun, Mitra and Nasatya. These 4 words, he could find these words in Central Asia before 1500 BCE. In Central Asia, there is a place called Boghaz-Bai. Boghazbai. Boghaz-Bai. This is the place in Central Asia. In that place, Max Muller has actually heard these names very frequently before 1500 BCE. So that was the reason, that was the main reason, main argument Max Muller put forward to say that actually these Aryans were belonging to Central Asia. They already know these words are actually of them. Indra, Varun, Mitra, Nasatya. So when they came to Indian subcontinent, and when they destroyed these Indus Valley people and everything, when they resettled here, then they introduced their words, their culture also. They started using these words: Indra, Lord Agni, Lord Varun, Lord Mitra in India. So that's why we could listen these from 1500 BC. This is what the argument put forward by the Max Muller. So first point was, he said Aryans were belonging to Central Asia. They came from Central Asia. They were a tribe there, and a place called Boghaz-Bai. So in that Boghaz-Bai, we could hear these words: Indra, Varun, Mitra. So he concluded that actually Aryans were belonging to Central Asia. Now next question: why did Aryans come to Indian subcontinent? Why? To that, he said, Max Muller has said, sir, actually Aryans were cattle rearers. All the Central Asian people, actually their occupation, main occupation was cattle rearing. or pastoralism, we call it as cattle rearing. Because why? Because the location, geographical location of Central Asia was in such a way, it could not be, it was not possible to have dense forests, to have dense agriculture, rich agriculture. It was not possible there. Completely Central Asian region, geographical land was, comprised of grasslands. So on the grasslands, normally animals will graze. So people will depend on the animal meat and animal, herding for their livelihood. So that occupation was called as pastoralism or cattle rearing. So actually they were Central Asian people, these Aryans before 1500 were these cattle rearers. So by 1500 what happened, as in the view, as the perspective of Max Muller placed it like that, Central Asian Aryans actually were in need of pastures and grain for their animals. It means there was a huge competition there in the Central Asia region to graze on the cattle, to graze on the pastures, etc. So they were in need of new pastures, they were in need of new grains to their animals. And what were the main animals they were herding? What was the main animals they were rearing? Two important animals associated with these Aryans when they were in Central Asia before 1500 BC. They were, Max Muller said all these things, not me. They were one animal which they were very familiar with, the Aryans when they were in Central Asia, was cattle. So cattle was very familiar to these Aryans when they were in Central Asia. So they were the cattle rearers. And second animal which was very familiar to them was horse. Sir, before 1500 BCE we could not find an animal like horse anywhere in our Indian prehistory. Even in the Indus Valley period, we could find one-horned bull. We could find rhinoceros on the Harappan seals. We could find deers. We could find bulls. But horse we could not find anywhere. So horse was not known to these people, Indus Valley people. Only after 1500 BC, this early Vedic period which I am speaking about, we in our Indian prehistory also found the skeletons of the horse in India. That means this animal horse was also actually associated with the Aryans. And Max Muller said, actually Aryans came to Indian subcontinent because they were in need of green pastures and grains for their cattle. And they came to such a distance, they travelled such a distance from Central Asia to Indian subcontinent. It was possible only because of the presence of horse with them. So horse and cattle rearing occupation. This was the two important characteristic features of these Aryans. So this is what the Max Muller's theory. He said they were belonging to Central Asia because he gave the evidence that the names like Indra, Varun, Mitra, which we would be listening in the next period of India, latter periods of India, before 1500 BC itself in Central Asia. So this he put forward as one of the reason, evidence. Another evidence he put forward was they were actually cattle rearers. So because they are cattle rearers and also because they are familiar with horse, they travelled such distances in search of the green pastures and they reached Indian subcontinent by 1500 BCE. And then they encountered with these Harappan people. There was confrontation and Harappan people their cities got destroyed and Aryans started habitating the places of Indian subcontinent after to the east of this Indus Valley sites. They settled completely in India. So this is what the Max Muller's theory. Now, listen, now we are in the timeline at where? 1500 BC. So why we are actually specifically demarcating before 1500 BC as post-Harappan and after 1500 BC as early Vedic period? Why? Only 1500 BC. Why? Because, sir, please listen. In our Indian prehistory, till then we could not have any compositions existed. Any written compositions, any oral compositions existed. That means, I mean to say, Before 1500 BCE, we were not having any older texts of Indian prehistory, texts or oral compositions in our Indian history. But the oldest oral composition, the oldest composition of our Indian literature was one of the four Vedas, that is Rig Veda. So Rig Veda is the oldest text of the world. So this Rig Veda was actually composed in the period of 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE. So in between that, this Rig Veda was composed. The earliest Veda of four Vedas. That is the reason we say this period from 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE as Rig Vedic period or early Vedic period. All other three Vedas have come after, in the latter Vedic period. They did not compose, they have not been composed in this period, 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE. Only Rig Veda was composed in this period. That is the reason we distinguish this period as early Vedic period. Rig Veda. Sir, Vedas are the oldest texts of the world. They are the oldest religious text of the world, to say very specifically. Till 1500 BCE, we could not find the traces of any religion or any belief system. Indus Valley people were not having any religion, sir. They were not having any religious, specific religion. They were having sacred beliefs. They were giving sacrifices. They were also performing sacrifices, because in Indus Valley cities we could find the fire altars in the citadel portion of the city, as I have said in the last class. In Mohenjo-daro we could find a large fire altar. That means they were also doing sacrifices, they were also doing homa like thing, but they were not in the domain of religion. There was no god, nothing else. It was just a sacred belief to the nature. They were giving sacrifice to the nature. But after 1500 BCE, we could see first time the earliest form of religion has started. The foundation for the religion actually laid in this period, sir, 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE. Now, as I have said, Rig Veda was composed between this period 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE. So let us see the story. Let us continue the story. Once the Aryans have come by 1500 BCE, what was happening? So that the term Aryans, the word Aryans, actually started in our Indian prehistory. It will appear in our Indian prehistory only from 1500 BCE. Before that, there was no word like Aryan was used. That means when Aryans came to the Indian subcontinent, already our Indus Valley people who abandoned their cities and who went eastwards, who went and resettled in the rural areas, they started again settlements. So they were native people, yes or no? In addition to this local native people, that is Indus Valley abandoned people in the post-Harappan period, maybe because of floods they migrated eastwards, or maybe because of Aryans invasion they were forced to migrate eastwards from the Indus Valley sites. But anyway, the conclusion was, when Aryans came, already there were local people. That is the reason in Rig Veda, the earliest Veda, which was composed in this period, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, early Vedic period, we could very frequently found two words in Rig Veda, sir, in Rig Vedic hymns. The first word was Aryans. Actually, Aryans were, in Rig Veda, they were considered as the composers of the Rig Veda. Composers of the hymns of Rig Veda, Aryans. And there was another word used in the Rig Veda to the people who are non-Aryans. And that word was, sir, very important. These words are very important in every examination. In the prehistoric portion, these words will naturally be asked to referring to what, referring to whom. So Rig Veda mentioned Aryans, who were the actual composers of the Rig Veda, and the second non-Aryans. For non-Aryans, that means the local people who are already there. Maybe they are the descendants of the Indus Valley people. So for them there was a word called as dasas. Dasas or dasyus. In Rig Veda we could frequently see these two words, Aryans and dasyus. That means dasas means, in Rig Veda it was mentioned that dasas are the people who were having very different culture, different language. They were not performing any sacrifices. They were captured. They were slaves. So this is the explanation about the dasas, the word dasas. That means by this historians concluded, maybe when Aryans came, already Indus Valley people descendants were there who migrated to eastward and started resettling there. Aryans saw these people as less civilized. Maybe that is the reason they used the word dasas or dasyus in the Rig Veda, and they used Aryans for themselves. There are two words used in the Rig Veda. Now, sir, if you see, when Aryans have come, they started resettling here. They started resettling here in the eastward, in the north, eastward to the Indus Valley side, and that means the present day North India. Sir, the area which was occupied by the Aryans, very important point I am going to say, the area, the landmass which was occupied by the Aryans was mentioned in Rig Veda as Sapta Saindhava region. Sapta Saindhava region. What is this Sapta Saindhava region? Sir, in Rig Veda, the language used was Old Sanskrit language. Old Sanskrit, not the present version of Sanskrit. If you go to schools, you will see second language Sanskrit. It is the modern Sanskrit. It was completely different from the old Vedic Sanskrit, which was used in the Rig Veda. So this word Sapta Saindhava region actually mentioned in the Rig Veda as the area which was occupied by the Aryans. So what was the area occupied by these Aryans? I mean, settled by these Aryans, or not occupied but settled. They came here and they settled everywhere. So that area was extending from Sapta Saindhava region. It means it was the land which was, being flown by 7 rivers. Sapta means 7, Saindhava means, actually in old Sanskrit it means rivers. 7 rivers. So the landmass which was covering by 7 rivers, 7 holy rivers, was considered as the Sapta Saindhava region. That is the present day North India. In that, Aryans were actually settling. By after 1500 BC, they were settling here. So very specifically to say, Sapta Saindhava region starts from Punjab, the Punjab province, and it extended till the Ganga plains, river Ganges plain. From Punjab to Ganga plains, that in between area landmass was considered as the Sapta Saindhava region, which was occupied by the Aryans, settled by the Aryans. Along with even local people were also there, but predominantly who were dominant people? The Aryans. So what were the 7 rivers? If you see the 7 rivers of this area, Sapta Saindhava region, which was mentioned in the Rig Veda, the first river mentioned was river Sindhu. That means we already know the river Indus. It was the boundary of this region. The westward boundary was Indus, and to the east of the Indus, this Sapta Saindhava region was there. The northern India, complete North India was settled by the Aryans and the local native people. So first river was Sindhu. Second river which was mentioned in the Rig Veda was river Askini. So very important, river Askini. Actually this Askini is the present day river Chenab. In Punjab we have 5 rivers. Panch means 5, Ab means water or rivers. 5 rivers. The combination of 5 rivers in a land called as Punjab. So after river Sindhu, another river mentioned in the Sapta Saindhava region was river Askini. That means the present day Chenab. And another river which was mentioned in the Rig Veda was river Vitasta. River Vitasta. What is this river Vitasta? The river Vitasta is the present day river Jhelum. Sir, in Punjab you have 5 rivers: river Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, Beas, Satluj. Yes or no? These are the 5 tributaries of river Indus. So actually Rig Veda was mentioning these 5 rivers in its own old Sanskrit version, and it was saying that this was the region which was occupied by the Aryans. So the first river mentioned was Sindhu. We know it was Indus, present day Indus. Second river mentioned Sapta Saindava. Second river was river Askini. That means the present day river Chenab. And the third river mentioned was river Vitasta. River Vitasta means the present day river Jhelum. And the fourth river mentioned in the Rigvedic period was Rig Veda about this Sapta Saindava region occupied by Aryans was river Purushni. These words are very important. That's why I am saying, sir, I have remembered and saying you. If not, these are actually not my cup of tea. You have to study this. You have to memorize this. But I am telling you, explaining you because they are important. If you listen once, at least when you refer back the text, it will be, imprinted. River Sindhu. That means next river Askini. Third river mentioned was river Purushni. And the fourth river mentioned by Rig Veda as a part of the Sapta Saindava region was river Saraswati. I have said river Saraswati was mentioned in the Rig Veda. But that river was, today it was not there. It was dried up. That was the reason some historians believe that maybe drying up of rivers was reason for the decline of the Harappan culture. River Saraswati. And these are the 4 different rivers: Sindhu, river Askini, river Purushni, river Saraswati. This is in the area of Punjab. Along with this, as a part of Sapta Saindava region, Rig Veda mentioned another 3 rivers. They were river Yamuna, which is in the present day Uttar Pradesh. That means from Punjab to Ganga plains, this was occupied by Aryans. So it is Punjab region, and in the eastward we have Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Bihar. That was the region also occupied. So in that, river Yamuna was one of the river mentioned in the Rig Veda. Only once it was mentioned. And another river mentioned was river Ganga. And the last river, 7th river which was mentioned was river Sarayu. So the area landmass which was actually the land of 7 rivers considered as the Sapta Saindava region, that was the land which was occupied by the Aryans along with the local native people. So now our story goes to this Sapta Saindava region, that is the present North India of modern India, North India. That is Jammu Kashmir, Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Delhi. These are the Haryana. These are the areas that was actually now the epicenter of our prehistory. Aryans. Before that, northwestern India, Indus Valley people. That means the Pakistan's Punjab, Pakistan's Balochistan, etc. But now the story got tilted because of the Aryans invasion and Aryans resettling here. Now our prehistory comes to the epicenter, that is the North India of India. Now, as I have said, there are 7 rivers. Rig Veda has mentioned it. And please do remember that Rig Veda is actually laid the foundation for early religious belief. So we could know that religion, a concept of religion, a concept of God started only from this period. Before that there was no concept of God. From 1500 BC. Because we could now know Rig Veda was composed in this period, Rig Veda mentioned, actually do you know what Rig Vedic hymns are about? There are around 1000 plus hymns in the Rig Veda, and Rig Vedic hymns are actually called as Suktas. Suktas. What is meant by Sukta? Well said. Sukta means well said. There were around 1000 plus hymns were there, 1000 plus. And do remember, every hymn of Rig Veda actually was in prayer of a god or goddess. Every hymn was in prayer of god or goddess. And what are the gods which were mentioned in the Rig Veda? If you see, only very specifically there are 4 important gods mentioned in the Rig Veda, and to these 4 gods people were praying. People were praying for, they are pleasing these gods for wealth, for health, etc. And how to do sacrifices, how to do prayer, how to worship these gods, that was being explained by Rig Veda. So Rig Veda is a religious text, earliest religious text. It was having 1000 hymns. They are called as suktas, that means well said. And it mentioned, they are actually the prayers, they are in praising of the gods and goddesses. They explain the way to reach the god, the way to please the god. And the gods mentioned in the Rig Veda, so a very important point I am going to tell you. The gods which were mentioned in the Rig Veda were, the first god mentioned was the god Agni. So please remember, Agni, the god of fire, was the first god which was mentioned in the Rig Veda. That means the people of this period, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, early Vedic period, they were believing in God, the fire, god fire, Agni. That means the god of fire. Is this not a sign to say, actually yajnas, now we call them as yagnas, homa, yagna, sacrifices. Do you know to whom all these are actually pleasing to? They are pleasing the god of fire, Agni. So biologically you can imagine that rituals and sacrifices started in this period. Sacrifices were started to the gods. Yagna started, Homa started. So first god was Agni. Second god mentioned in the Rig Veda was god Indra. So very important. As I have said, Indra he is the god of war. So this Lord Indra was very frequently mentioned in the Rig Veda. Second god. And the third god which was mentioned in Rig Veda was god Varuna or god Varun. That means because agriculture was started in Neolithic period, during all this 2 to 3000 years of time, agriculture now got matured enough, so that people were completely dependent on agriculture for their livelihoods in this period. So people were very conscious and very emotional about agriculture and its ripening of fruit, etc. So for normal monsoon, to get normal rain, they were always looking to Lord Varun, to please Lord Varun. So this is the third god, Lord Agni, first one. Then the god Indra, second mentioned god. Third god mentioned was Lord Varun. And the fourth god which was mentioned, these are the only 4 gods mentioned in Rig Veda. The fourth god mentioned was Lord Soma. And do you know, very interestingly, Lord Soma, actually who is this Lord Soma about? Fire we know, Indra we know, Lord Varun we could know. But what is this Lord Soma is about? Sir, actually this Soma is a plant. And from that plant, these people, early Vedic people, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, in that, the people were actually extracting a special drink from this plant. This plant will give a special drink to the people, and that drink was, it was an alcoholic in nature. So people used to enjoy that alcohol, plant alcohol. So that plant's name was Soma, because it was giving them a very, alcoholic drink for their enjoyment and amusement. They started praying the plant, and they started even pleasing the Lord Soma as a representative of this plant, Soma plant. So these were the 4 gods mentioned in the Rig Veda. Now, Aryans have come. Sapta Saindava region was occupied by them. This was the region of their settlements from Punjab to Ganga plains. That means the present day Punjab, Delhi, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Bihar. Clear? Now let us study about everything about these people, the period, the early Vedic period and the society, early Vedic society. How were they? What was happening in the society? Why they were, the culture of this early Vedic period was very different from Indus Valley people. In what domain they were different? Let us see. So first let us study about the political domain of the political domain. Political domain, sir. Sir, in the Indus Valley period, we could not find a king, a Raja. Yes or no? We could not find a Raja. Even there was no concept of different occupations, social divisions. We could not find them, the traces of these much social divisions or etc. Traces of religion, traces of political power in Indus Valley period. But after 1500 BC, if you see in the Sapta Saindava region, which was occupied by Aryans, for the first time, sir, I'm explaining about the political domain of this early Vedic period. Sir, in the early Vedic period, the society actually was in a transition state from being completely political, systemless society to towards establishing a political system. It was a transition period, early Vedic period. You will see the first point I am explaining. You will see the earliest steps towards a very initial, very nascent stage of monarchical form of polity. There were some steps towards that. Monarchical form of polity. What is monarchical form of polity? Monarch means a single person ruling the people. Monarchy means it is the area of residing by the people in which a single person is the authority, sole authority. Monarchy. So you will see some small steps towards that. Very small steps. That monarchy was very initial form of monarchy in the early Vedic period. That means the king, the so-called Raja, was not much powerful, was not much stronger as he was in the next coming periods. In the coming latter periods, you will see the position of king was very powerful. The position of monarch was very powerful. He was the sole decision maker. But in the early Vedic period, yes, there are some steps towards that. One person was started being seen as the ruler, as the Raja, but he could not have much powers, and as he grabbed them in the latter times. That means king was not much powerful during this early Vedic period. So if not the king, then who were strong? Who were actually to take the decisions? Sir, in the early Vedic period, between 1500 BC to 1000 BC, you will see some group of assemblies. Actually, these assemblies will take the decisions. For example, in Rig Veda, there are around 4 words mentioned about this, 4 words used for representing these assemblies. One word was Sabha. That means there were Sabhas everywhere in this early Vedic period. And these Sabhas means a group of people, and they were actually taking the decisions of society. Decisions, every society, every decision. Not the king in himself. King was actually only the face to implement these ideas, but the decisions were actually taken by the Sabha. One word used for association. Another word mentioned in the Rig Veda was Samiti. There were some Samitis also, associations. So these Samitis were actually taking the decisions, not the king. King was not sole authority. He was not much powerful in early Vedic period. That means it is a little democratized society, we can say. A little democratized society, not a centralized authority. Because Sabhas were taking the decision, like parliament, like in our modern days, we can compare it with a parliament. We can compare it with a state assembly. Samiti means assembly, like that. And third word which was mentioned about these associations was Gana. Gana means republic. People themselves were taking the decisions, not the king. King was only helping to implement those, facilitating those ideas to be implemented. So sabhas, samitis, ganas, and another word, fourth word mentioned about this, political political structure was vidhata. Vidhata means they are a group of people, headmen, we can say, headmen of different villages or etc. So these people were actually meeting together and taking the decisions about the society, early Vedic period. Sabhas, samitis, ganas and vidhatas. These are the four different political units which were actually very strong. They were strong in such a way, to such an extent, even they could able to replace the kings if they wanted. That means king was not much powerful. Sabhas were powerful, samitis were powerful, ganas were powerful, vidhatas were powerful. A little democratized society, decentralized society, we can say. Now, second point to be noticed here in the political domain about this period was, sir, this state, the so-called society, the kingship or the Rajan, it was not a police state. I'm very sorry, it was not a welfare state. It was completely a police state. That means, I have said king will be there, a Raja was there. Along with the Rajas, Samitis, Sabhas, Vidhatas were there. They were actually taking the decisions. Raja was implementing them. And the decisions are not the decisions of today's governments, like laying the roads, laying the agricultural irrigation facilities. No, they were not. That is not the responsibility of those people, those ganas, those samitis, sabhas, even the king. The responsibilities were only to protect the people, that's all. Only to protect the people. They don't do any development work, etc. People themselves will live on their own. There is no imposition from the king, there was no imposition from Sabha to do only certain things, etc. People themselves will live freely. But these people only give protection to their lives, protection from other people, from other groups, to protect themselves from other groups. When battles happen, when wars happen, only these Sabhas, Samitis and the king will protect the people, giving protection, that's all. Their responsibility is only to that. They are not entitled to give developmental work to the people, to give to take care of the people. No, it was not a welfare state, it was a police state. Our today's governments are welfare states. That means only giving protection is not your sole responsibility. As a government, you have the responsibility to take care of everything about the people. You have to give them employment, you have to give them different rights of livelihood, right to labor, right to wages, right to everything. You have to give sufficient public development opportunities. You have to facilitate the people to develop themselves. So that's the role of a welfare state. Complete welfare of the citizens will be taken care of. That is the modern governments. But in the early Vedic period, it was not a welfare state, only just protecting the people from other groups, other states or other surrounding people when battles and when wars happen. So the first point is monarchical form of polity was in the nascent stage, in the very initial stage. King was not much powerful. Sabhas were powerful, samitis were powerful, vidhatas were powerful and ganas were powerful. Second point in the political domain was, it was not a welfare state, it was just giving protection to people, that's all. Now, the third point to be understood here is that I have said this is actually the economic domain of this period. Economic domain. Now we have completed political domain. Another point I have to tell in political structure. One is king, another one is sabhas, samitis, third one is they are taking actual decisions. But the important thing here is that along with king, there are three other positions in this early Vedic period, and those designations, those positions were actually helping the king in managing the activities. And those three positions were very, very important, sir. Please listen. One position was
श्री महाभारत कथा।